Is this the best bench you can buy for under $350?
Selwyn here for WynnStrength.com. On this video, I wanted to talk to you guys about the best bench you can buy for your gym that's under 350 bucks. And that is the Rep Fitness AB-3000 FID adjustable bench. FID stands for Flat Incline Decline, so you get all three options, and I think that versatility is great for a bench where you really only have space for one bench in the gym. I did want to start off by saying that when it comes to adjustable benches, I don't think it's one of those things you can cheap out on. I think this is the bare minimum you should buy if you're considering getting an adjustable bench. Now, if you're getting a flat bench, by all means, go really cheap. I think Amazon has a great flat bench. I'll leave a link below. That it doesn't really matter. It's got a pretty significant weight rating. And the reason I don't think that you need to go too expensive with a flat bench is if you're just getting started and whatnot, even if you're not, straight lines are strong. So the strength of the metal is going to be more important than the strength of the design and all the movable parts when it comes to an adjustable bench. I started off with a cheap bench that I got secondhand from a friend. It had a weight rating of 300 pounds, and I never benched above 185 pounds on that thing just because of fear of the creaking and the cracking. Once I started benching around 185 pounds on any incline, the thing would shake. There'd be weird noises happening. There'd be like pops and stuff. And I don't think it's worth it to risk pushing that weight when you're on such a cheap piece of equipment, because of all the lifts you do in the gym, especially by yourself. This is the self-guillotining exercise of them all. It's the king of killing yourself. Definitely keep in mind, this is one of those things where I would highly, highly recommend you save up for and you get at least this bench. I bought it in March 2009, so I've had it for over a year now. When I bought it, it cost $310, including shipping to California. So I think we're right at that great price point. When you start going above this, you're looking at like the $500-600 mark. And yes, they're great benches, but if you're on a budget, this is probably going to be the cheapest bench that I would say you should get for the home gym.
So if you do want to grab this bench off of Rep Fitness, I have left an affiliate code in the description below, so check that out.
So let's go from top to bottom. I think that's probably going to be the easiest way to review this bench, so we make sure we capture everything. Starting with the vinyl covering of the pad. I think it's a good covering for what you pay for. It's quite grippy, but not extremely grippy, but it's definitely not as slippery as like some of those slick vinyl pads. And one of my workarounds for that has been to just use some of those anti-slip mats you can get from 99-cent store. Very cheap, just roll that on the top of the mat and you won't be able to, it'll be harder for you to slide off the top during that leg drive. Other than that, it's been very durable over the last year. You'll notice I do have duct tape on the top. The only reason for that is that's my fault. I was doing bent over rows with the aggressively nailed Ohio pound bar, graze the top, not just once, not just twice, but a fair amount of times, and decided to pull out the staples. So I had to put some duct tape there to A, fix that, and B, prevent that from happening again. I didn't really learn my lesson, so that's there now. But other than that, everyday wear and tear, there's no sign of it loosening or like getting scuffed up from standing on it, from doing step-ups or things of that nature. So I think it's a great pad covering. Underneath the pad covering is some nice durable foam, 2.5 inches of foam. It's, again, just like day one, it hasn't softened or broken down or like deformed in any way. So I think that's a testament to its durability. It still feels like it was day one. So I think that's a good thing. If you are used to a firmer pad, this probably isn't going to be the firmest pad you're ever going to bench press off of. So potentially, if you're more of an advanced powerlifter, or you just lift a bit more heavy weights and you used to, say, a competition style bench press, it's probably not going to be the pad for you. But at that point, you're probably going to be looking at a more expensive bench to use. Or you're going to have two dedicated benches, one for your competition bench and then one for your accessory movements. If you're a wider frame person, you might find the top of the pad, which is pretty standard width, slightly narrow. If you were used to benching on a wider surface, you can really flip this around and bench on the seat portion of the bench, where it is a lot wider and gives you a bit more of a stable platform if that's what you desire. So you do have that customizability by flipping it around and benching reverse style. So now we come to the adjustability part of the upper part. You can go from 20 degrees decline all the way up to 85 degrees incline, just 5 degrees shy of that perfect right angle that a seat would have. I think the ladder mechanism is super simple. We just pick it up, pick it down, kind of set it into the rails. The second position is going to be your flat, and then the decline is just going to be the bench resting straight onto the frame. Again, I've used it over a year. I've sat on it right on the edge. I've stood right on the edge, just to make sure that it didn't make any sounds. And again, this thing is super solid on any of those incline or decline positions. The flat position is super solid. This is one thing that I haven't ever worried about, the stability of it. When I first got it, I tested it out. I sat on it I sat right on the edge on every incline just to make sure nothing happened. Nothing obviously happened. So a year later, the bench is still operating just fine. No worries or qualms about that. So great stability. A super simple design process where it's just a ladder going into those hooks, and all the metal there is super thick and reinforced. So I think that's nothing you have to worry about with that failing at any point in time. It does have that 1,000 pound weight rating, which is well above what I think I'll be able to bench, and what a lot of people have benched out there as well. So take away my 210 to 15 pound body weight, you're looking at a 785 pound bench press maximum. And I think if I was anywhere near to that, I would probably look at getting one of those more expensive benches, just because I think at that point you kind of deserve to get a better bench, right? So I did want to talk about the flat position. As you can see by the construction, when it is flat, the forces isn't designed to go straight down onto a leg. It takes onto that arm at an angle and then into the ladder leg. So you do have that force distribution that way. Again, I haven't felt any bending or flexing of the metal when the weight gets heavy. It just feels solid. Again, testament to the Rep Fitness design and the thickness of the steel they're using. It is set to the IPF powerlifting standard of 17.5 inches in bench height, so you get that continuity in equipment. So if this is the only bench you have and you do perform powerlifting meets, you'll be accustomed to this bench height. You'll be accustomed to benching at this thickness of a pad. There is only one decline position, which is fine. I'm not a big decline bench guy. I really only use the decline portion to do some decline sit-ups, which is a great versatility feature of the bench. Again, because I don't really use decline options in my workouts, it's not really that big of a issue for me. But if that's something that you need more variability with, maybe this isn't the bench for you. With regards to the incline of the bench, you get 5 incline adjustments, which I'll list right here, and you'll see that I think you'll find an angle that suits you. It might not be as adjustable as some of the more expensive benches or the ones you find at the gym, but I think at that point you kind of splitting hairs there at that point, and 5 settings for $310. I think that's a great value option. I think that's enough versatility you need in a home gym if you can't spend the extra money. Remember, you have to balance that price and features. Now let's talk about the chair portion of the bench. The chair portion is nice. It's wider just because they have to make it a little thicker. I mean, wider because of that decline option, so you have that grip to hold onto with your legs. It does come with those feet rollers as well as a handle. I've noticed that the feet rollers don't really get in the way of anything. You can kind of put your feet on them on the incline position, just because if you're a shorter guy or your legs don't really reach the floor that well, I tend to do that when the weights are light. The other thing I found helpful with the feet rollers is if you're benching on a wooden platform where your shoes slip and slide, and you do a lot of leg drive, you can use those feet rollers to anchor in your feet and push off of those feet anchors. Now, I know it's not you're not going to get that in a competition, but if you don't have any rubber flooring to put your feet on, that's a great way to get around that. It's a nice little funny hack that I found just for this particular bench press, because you're able to push over that, and because you're pushing off of the bench itself, you're not going to worry about the bench sliding around either. The one negative I would say with the seat is that the seat angle doesn't come up high enough for that lower setting. I'm 5'8", so I find myself kind of slipping a little bit. I can't get that strong. My legs don't feel long enough for this bench. but that's not a problem. If you're taller than me, it's going to be fine. But again, for comfort, I like to have, when the bench is at the lower setting, I like to have a slightly higher angle so I can get some more support from sitting on it rather than driving off on my legs on the floor. So there is also a little 2-inch gap between the seat and the upper pad. Not something I ever noticed or really has affected my lifting in any way. Where my butt lays on the bench when I bench press is usually above that gap. So it's not really, doesn't really affect my bench pressing when it's flat. And then when the incline is there, you're kind of sitting down where the gap doesn't really play into it. That's my proportions too. So if you're taller or shorter, you might run into issues with that gap where your butt falls. But I think if you just shift your body up or down a little bit, you'll be able to find a position where that gap doesn't really play into it. And you don't really have to worry about that gap being there. And when doing some dumbbell rows or some support rows, rather than having to have your wrist flat, you can kind of stick your hand in that gap and get more of a flatter, more of a straighter wrist support for when you're doing those dumbbell rows. And I think that's pretty helpful. But that's my own personal preference for where I like my wrist to be. So I won't really go over the exact specifics of what the metal is used. You can find it on their website. All I want to say is that it is ATSM rated to 1,000 pounds. I think that's probably more than enough for most people. And again, if you're bench pressing world record numbers, this probably isn't the bench for you. If you're bench pressing in the 600 pound range, then yeah, definitely spend more money and get a better bench. But if you're bench pressing literally anything below that amount, then by all means, go ahead and get this bench. I bench press 325 flat, 275 on an incline. There's no shaking, no wobbling, no creaking, nothing that would give me a lack of confidence in order to bench more weight. And that's the last thing you want. So with the cheaper bench, I was holding myself back from benching more because I was hesitant, especially with those incline weights, to push the weight because I was probably going to be stronger than the bench would allow me to press. And that's not something you want in the back of your head when you're lifting weights over and above your skull and neck. Again, safety first when it comes to working out by yourself. And when it's something as pivotal as this, I think this is where you should spend the money on, definitely. So this thing is 54 inches long and 26 inches wide, if that helps you fit it into your garage gym. This is probably one of the biggest footprint things in your gym, and it does weigh 85 pounds. They do provide some wheels at the top and a handle to wheel it around with. The one biggest annoyance I have with the unit is the fact that it's hard to pick it up. But that is really difficult on this bench because the top does move. You can't really grab it by the top, so you have to grab it by the bottom in the middle, and you grab it by the handle. So there's this awkward picking it up and moving it around if that's what you want to do. So the unit does arrive really nicely packaged. It is packaged well for what you're getting. It does arrive mostly assembled. There is some assembly with it. If you have some tools, I would highly recommend using like a wrench that you have rather than the little finger wrench they give you. I started off with a little finger wrench thinking, would it take that long? But that was dragging on. But once I got 2 wrenches and used those to get like proper wrenches with handles, the assembly time dropped immediately. But with that in mind, it did take around under an hour, probably 45 minutes to put together. I did have one issue with one of the screws on the foot pad kind of being slightly off-threaded, so that wouldn't really go in all the way. But after reviews, I haven't noticed it, nor do you really remove the foot rollers on and off. So once it's in there, it's just going to stay in there. It doesn't rotate either, so you're not twisting it, you're really just kind of stepping on it. So that was the only downside. One of the screws didn't fit in properly just due to the threading. So the warranty is kind of interesting. They give you 10 years for the frame, which is awesome, but 30 days for the pad, which I like. Why just not include? I just wouldn't include a warranty, but you get a month. I think that's just in case there's any damage to the pads during shipping. I haven't had to deal with it because I haven't had any damage to the pads other than what was self-inflicted there. So I think the biggest selling point of this bench is the fact that it is nice and bulky. So 85 pounds, really solid, really stable. Again, I've sat on the head of it and not really had any issues with the movement of it. It is a good price point. I think out of all the options out there, this is going to be your best bet for value for what you get, because it did ship to California for $310. If you live in the Denver or the Colorado area, you can pick it up. So that's going to drop down a significant amount of the price. I think it was $260. That's still a great value. You have options like Titan Fitness, Rogue Fitness. Again, but with the Titan, you get that cheapness. I've read some reviews. The pad's a little wobbly. The bench itself is a little wobbly at times, depending on, I think, quality control. And again, when it comes to that bench press, you want to have something that's solid and not something you're kind of questioning if I'm going to kill myself that day or not. Rogue has some great options, obviously. They're Rogue. But again, that price point adds up, and then you add in shipping, you're looking at a fairly expensive adjustable bench option. So I think this hits that sweet spot of quality and price, and I highly recommend getting this bench. Now, there are a couple of downsides to the bench. I mentioned it earlier, but it's hard to pick up. There's no handle or any way to pick the head of the bench up, so you can't pick it up like this. You're going to have to pick it up using that bottom pad there. Is just a little awkward to move around, especially with that 85-pound weight. The other downside that really affects your probably performance is going to be the fact that the feet don't have any grippy pads on the bottom. There's no rubber, it's metal. So if you have a platform like myself, or if you're on concrete, there is a tendency for it to slide. It takes a fair amount of force for you to slide, especially once you add in some weight, just because it is a hard surface on a hard surface, so there's no friction. You can put it, if you're bench pressing on a rubber mat or you have Tractor Supply horse stall mats, this is not going to be an issue for you at all. Carpet, not an issue at all. But there can be that tendency. I haven't experienced it other than me trying to do it when I'm bench pressing, because there is that heavy weight that's pushing you down onto the floor. So when you have that exertion, like that force of your leg drive pushing the bench up, you're going to have to overcome a significant amount of friction that's weighing down on those pads. But that is a possibility to keep in mind, just if you have a really strong leg drive and you're not really bench pressing that much weight. And again, that's a super easy problem to fix. Just throw some grippy pads underneath, get that 99-cent grip pad. And that 99-cent grip pad will also help you with the other issue with the bench press, and that is the fact that the vinyl covering is a little slicker than I would like. It's not a super grippy bench pad by any means. You can slide on it, but again, once you add some weight on the bench press, that friction between you and the bench press is going to help. You and your shirt and the bench press is going to help. And then once you throw in that grippy pad, those three things combined together, it's a good bench, and it's solved by a 99-cent problem. And again, once you get into more nicer benches and you spend a little bit more money, the covering is going to be nicer and a bit more grippy. So again, it's kind of that trade-off between price and what you're getting. If this is a trade-off, it's an easy fix that can be sold for under $1. And the final con of the bench is the fact that it's got a really large footprint. It's not conducive to hanging anywhere, just because it doesn't have that solid, the top part doesn't really lock in, so you'd have to store it somehow. I haven't quite figured out how to store it in a vertical way, or if it's even possible. If you know of a way, please comment below. It'd be awesome to see some ideas as to how to get this bench stored away, just because it does take up that huge footprint in the gym, and when you're not bench pressing, it just sits there gathering dust. I think wrapping up, should you buy it? I think it's pretty clear by now. I would highly recommend you buy this bench if you're in that price range, $300. And I think, again, I would highly recommend you not to cheap out on a bench press, especially when it comes to an adjustable bench. If you're buying a flat bench, just get one that has a 1,000-pound rating, and those are quite cheap, especially because the construction is really easy, just 2 posts and a bar and a pad. Something like that is really cheap to make really sturdy. But once we start getting a bit more complex mechanisms like this, I don't want to have to doubt my safety when I'm bench pressing a heavy weight on an incline bench press, or any bench press for that matter. So I think this is like the bottom of the line that you should get if you're looking to really bench press anything over 200 pounds. And even if you're just getting started, like I did, I don't think you should buy a cheap bench and then buy another bench when you get stronger. Just buy this one, and then you won't have to buy another bench until you're breaking world records. And if you're breaking world records, you deserve a better bench. There are other bench presses that I think are great. I'll leave some links below, but again, you're looking at the $500-600 range. So if your budget can expand out to that much, then by all means, spend a little bit more. Get that nice Rogue bench. Get the nice AB-3000 bench, which doesn't have a gap and is slightly easy to store around and move around as well. So there are some nicer options once you're able to spend twice the amount of money that this bench costs. But again, if you're stuck in this 320, get this bench. There's a few cons, but I think those cons are easily overcome. Really give this bench 8 out of 10. I think an adjustable bench is a good bench to get for the gym, especially in your home gym, just because it does give you that versatility. Even if you do majority of your bench pressing on the flat bench, having that incline and decline is just nice to have, so you don't have to go out and buy another bench or to buy a block to put that bench on to elevate it. So I'll go ahead and leave a link below to check out the Rep Fitness website. Buy the bench if it's something that you want to get. Highly recommend this bench, obviously. Solid 8 out of 10. I think it's a great piece of equipment. Probably the only way to increase that rating is to increase the price. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Is there another bench that you recommend in the same price point? Or do you think this is one of the best one of the best adjustable benches you can buy within that $350 range? Be sure to click like and subscribe if you found some use out of this video. I'll be leaving some more reviews of the equipment I have in the gym. And again, I've owned most of it for over a year, so you're going to be getting a good review after about a year of use, not like an unboxing video. This has been Selwyn from Wynn Strength, and remember, a better life through strength.